Hello everyone. So today I would like to speak about, do we really get attracted to the appearances of people, and to which degree the appearance really plays a role in our lives. Definitely when we have pleasant appearance or a nice haircut or a nice smile, it may cause attraction. It may result in attracting people to us or kind of paying attention. But is it really it? Because the attraction has to be sustained, because the point in life, or the point of attraction, is what do you attract these people for, or what you're trying to convey with your image, and do people really attract to your appearance or something else that stands behind the appearance. From a spiritual point of view, there is no attraction without the invocation of something within you, because you get attracted to something not just because it draws your attention, but it also invokes something energetically in you. So in a way, we do attract to appearances for a moment, but then in order for us to stay there in that moment with that attraction, in order to extend that attraction for a longer period of time, we have to look at a deeper aspect. What does really attract us to this or that? And in general, it doesn't only concern the appearance, but it also concerns other aspects and areas of life. So usually, and through my observation, again, I'm sharing my personal experience and insight. So yes, it's true. We can, let's say, transform our appearance, or have a makeup, or do something to draw people's attention through clothing. And yet, after a short while, people will somewhat lose their attention or interest in us. And this is because the majority of people get attracted not to your appearance, in fact, but to your energy. And this solves kind of the dilemma in some people's minds that, for instance, some older people may be kind of, you can see the signs of aging, or they can be, not maybe that attractive from the first sight, but later on you feel drawn to them. Like, for instance, we get attracted to our grandparents or to our elderly, aunts or uncles, because they emit something. And what is it that they emit? If you really contemplate on it, you will realize that they emit some sort of an energy of warmth, home, maturity. And this maturity makes them kind of simple and authentic in their self-expression. Sometimes people wonder how their men or women get attracted to someone all of a sudden, even if that doesn't fit in the category of their, usual interests, or the somehow these people don't fit into that category, because maybe that those people invoke something within them that you don't have. Maybe your connection is based on superficial attraction, which was because of the way you dressed, or what you were wearing, or your perfume, or your maybe smile, but then, or maybe some sort of a moment through which you got attracted, that moment of your authenticity, which somewhat didn't last. And now when they get attracted to someone else deeper, or there is deeper connection, it means those people invoked something else in them. And this is the invocation of that authenticity within them. So with those people, they were able to be themselves, you may say. They were able to perceive that connection, and the connection is somewhat an equal give and take, because in many connections people do not have equal give and take, and so it's a karmic connection where one person somewhat gives more and the other person abstains, and that's why it causes that other person to give even more. and it creates the dynamics of runner and chaser, which is unhealthy, which is trauma-based. Now, healthy relationships always are based on this foundation of authentic sharing, where give and take is out of question. I mean, unequal give and take is out of questions, because it's always naturally equal give and take. It's always natural contribution. That's why people in such connections say they have this unconditional love, that love is that desire to give unconditionally, regardless of the other person, because you know that they are also in love with you. So they are also going to give you that energy of warmth and generosity, because love is that warmth and generosity. But that love of high frequency of love can be only experienced with maturity, and different people mature at different times. Sometimes people spend lifetimes to mature, to reach that awareness of love being as that higher frequency unconditional being. All the other time they sort of experience their trauma or love through the trauma. That's why they have to face different scenarios of relationships where they perceive the trauma from different angles. Or if trauma is, for example, of a certain kind, they feel insecurity, fear of commitment, they will always sabotage their relationships, and they will ignore the actually higher frequency of love. They will focus more on fear rather than will perceive that higher frequency, because they cannot notice that higher frequency within themselves. So when we are not aware of that higher frequency, when we have not had that experience where we fully surrendered to the experience, and where we were truly ourselves, our authentic selves, which is just giving unconditionally. And that giving doesn't mean just in love, it means on all levels. When you do business, when you consult, when you communicate with other people, when you are there for someone for whatever reason, that is unconditional giving. And if that is not important in our lives, and we do not make it important, we become gradually selfish and self-centered. And we still need that warmth and nurturing energy. So we get attracted to these people. But unfortunately, we cannot sustain that because we ourselves are not contributing to that connection. And connection means the support of that frequency. When your conscious contribution is more or less the same as theirs. So in this case, by giving it energy, you prolong the life of that connection. When there is no authenticity in the connection, there can't be equal give and take, and the life span of that connection, you may say, is going to be shorter, or this connection has no foundation, because foundation is not what you give or take materially, but what you invest in the form of your energy conscious attention. That's why it's important to prioritize your connections if you want them to be long-lived, but again, you cannot prioritize something that is not important for you. So again, everyone has their own priorities, and these priorities are also defined by their karmic inclinations, by the cycle, say astronomical cycle they're living in, because all of these factors, external factors, will be shaping one into seeing their life through this angle or that angle, and therefore prioritizing certain aspects and ignoring other aspects. So, and it's a long topic. I mean, we can go into it speaking from the astronomical, astrological point of view, where you could see that when there are certain planetary positions and they kind of draw your attention into your, say, house of relationships or house of business relationships. So in that time, you will suddenly well, nothing happens suddenly, but it's somewhat gradually as this will start sort of as the planets are going into these aspects. So you will suddenly start drawing more attention or paying more attention to these aspects, to your connections, or you will start feeling like you need to have a reasonable connection in your life. Or, but again, if you go into connections from a rational standpoint, you will never find happiness, because true connection is the connection of the souls. And in that connection, rationality fails, because the most important is that you have the connection and that you realize it, admit it, and appreciate. Because without these two, the appreciation and kind of recognition of that connection, again, this connection might just go down the drain because you simply do not realize its value, and you start prioritizing things which maybe do not fulfill your soul. So again, it all comes down to what you prioritize, what you emphasize in your life, and what you ignore, because it's up to your personal choice, and more so the soul choice. Now, when you have all these priorities established, and sometimes, usually, or most of the time, you can say that they are pushed somehow from within. Because let's say for 1 year or 2 years you prioritize relationships, all of a sudden your focus shifts, because now you settle down, you have a foundation, so now you're building your career. Now this is kind of more of a natural transition, but life is not always happening this way. And it can be so that sometimes you have a step or kind of prioritize some other aspects of life, and unexpectedly met someone you love. And because you neglected that, you may regret for the rest of your life, say, or you may be coming back to that connection because that was an opening, that was an opportunity that you chose not to take. So again, it is not only about the fact that we may experience connections and they can be beautiful, but it's also our soul choice, or what we choose to prioritize in our lives. And so it's always the energy that we attract to, and it's always the energy that keeps us there. When we shift in frequency and say our partner does not grow with the same pace or the same way as us, or they start prioritizing something else, that too can cause separation, at least temporary separation, or some kind of friction, until your frequencies stabilize. And the only way to stabilize frequencies is through communication, because when you acknowledge something, when you acknowledge differences, you can as well live through these differences in a smooth way, because there's nothing hidden. The problems arise when certain things become concealed, mistrust growing, people communicate less and less, and because of that, there is resentment, there is anger, there is some kind of a untold friction, and this friction is usually the sign of mismatch of energies, and it doesn't describe the mismatch of the connection, because the connection has been originally there, but it's the frequency on which each of these people chooses to stay. So if this person stays on this frequency and the other person stays on the other frequency, for whichever reason, maybe because of their career, because of something else, and they do not understand how important it is to hold on to that higher frequency of love and connection that was there originally, they start kind of rubbing off that connection or the memory of that higher experience and connection, and paying more attention at the mundane situations, refusing to communicate, because the connection is always there, if that is the real connection of souls and hearts. But if people do not focus on that, but focus on the mundane, they lose that connection. If that connection goes out of sight, And so the mundane situations or the external factors may become the turning points for the connection. They may become the breaking points for the connection, even though they are maybe, unimportant, really very small issues. But if they are more emphasized than the connection, then there is something off. Then there is kind of a choice from one or the other or both not to continue that connection because of these factors. But again, if the connection is there, when these people, let's say, choose to separate, they will still feel a very strong connection, because the connection is more important than the mundane, transitory aspects of life. And so again, each and every person decides for themselves what's important for them and what's not. But true soul connections are almost unbreakable, because even though you can never forget such connections, because again, you may choose something else, but sooner or later you will be drawn again energetically to that. And again, coming back to the start of this session, it is always energy. Some people, let's say, choose even maybe mature partners, or people who, I don't know, maybe they're not that pretty or handsome, but they choose them because they emanate that energy. So it's never about appearance. It's more about, first of all, the energy that that person emanates. Second of all, what that energy invokes in you. If they emanate that energy of love and warmth, that motherly nature or fatherly, energy, you get attracted to that naturally, because that brings you that sense of home. But if you do not have or did not have that sense of home, at your personal home, you might not get attracted to that energy. Or you may get attracted, but then your understanding of home, which is based maybe on trauma, maybe you had a wrecked home, or emotionally unstable or mentally unstable home. So you will maybe sabotage these kind of connections because you will not appreciate them. Your energy or your focus will go onto the connections which invoke trauma, because you're still unhealed, because there is still traumatic response to reality. And these kind of relationships in this case will be taken for granted, because you can't put value in them. You enjoy, you bathe in their energy, but you can't put value on these relationships, because so far your consciousness is trying to purge, resolve that trauma, tries to see it more obviously, so that you can heal. That's why you still come back to the connections which even maybe hurt you, but then that's the way you understood love from the start. So now you have to shift to the restoration of the actual higher frequency of love within yourself. So you have to get hurt. I mean, it doesn't sound positive, but that's what it is. You will get hurt, and you might be even attracted to this kind of scenarios where you get hurt, until you restore a complete, wholesome sense of self, which is also the reconnect with a higher frequency of love. Then, and only then, you will be able to recognize it in the outside world and get attracted to these kind of beings. The same applies to the higher frequency in terms of self-realization, self-awareness, and spiritual knowledge, because as long as you're not aware of these kind of frequencies, you can never recognize them from the outside world. So you can never come across someone who emanates that, or who could help you from the outside world to establish yourself in that. Because again, awakening to these frequencies is one thing, to get established is another thing. That's where you need, or might need, sometimes guidance, or other people will be there as important pillars for your establishment. So they will reflect your conditionings and so on and so forth. And if you're enough spiritually mature, you will be able to recognize it and grow through these relationships and connections to which you get attracted, or which invoke something in you. And this is again this situation where if you observe different people and how they match, the long-lasting relationships are a frequency match, first of all, a soul match or a frequency match. Even if it's not 100% soul match, it's a frequency match where people just somewhat on the same frequency, and their souls feel comfortable in that relationship. So even though maybe they don't look like they match, or maybe there is some sort of a conflict going on, but still they are together. And then there are people who match perfectly, and yet the trauma sabotages their connections, and they maybe choose not to stay in those connections, or they go through stages of separation until they learn and mature. And so, spiritually speaking, it's all about energy. Yeah, people are young at a certain age, and then they exhaust themselves through life, and then they age. I mean, the majority of people, are not speaking about spiritual sages, but we're speaking about spiritually evolved beings, but we're speaking about normal people. So, and yet, let's say if they do spiritually evolve, let's say after 40 or 50, they will come or restore that authenticity within them. They will come back to that authentic frequency also of love and the way they express themselves, and they might become very attractive as well. And so sometimes you see people also having sometimes a lot of differences in their background, maybe some age gap and so on and so forth, but their souls attract because it's the energy. It's the so-called a higher connection, which neglects the way the body appears, or where it comes from, or the spiritual religious background, or whatever else. Those things are not important, because now at this point of maturity, both people recognize, first of all, the maturity level matches, and they recognize each other. They prioritize that which you may say is more immortal, if I may say so, in comparison with the transitory aspects, or some kind of household issues, or mundane reality. Because if people are mature enough, they can communicate and resolve these issues. So as a conclusion, we always get attracted to the energy, no matter how we look. And this also proves why, for example, let's say today you feel very aligned and kind of you feel good about yourself, and you see that a lot of people look at you and get attracted to you, and some other days you feel down, maybe insecure, maybe you're thinking of something, and at that time no one looks at you, no one pays attention, because again, people pay attention to that energy of warmth and authenticity when you're aligned with yourself. And with yourself means with your higher being, which means that energy of the source that is emanating through your body at that moment. That's usually the moment when you can get attracted to someone, or someone gets attracted to you, and there is a spark, and yet maybe your intelligence level doesn't match, and something else doesn't match, your views or whatever else, and the connection doesn't go past this attraction stage, or maybe you're a little bit dating or communicating, and so it doesn't pass or goes over the infatuation stage. Because the primary factors of attraction are energy of authenticity, and the second is intelligence, but also humility, because without humility, intelligence is but the ego. Intelligence becomes like a stumbling rock, and that's why a lot of intelligent people end up being alone, even if they don't want so, because they kind of create an idol out of their intelligence, that spiritual ego, or out of this spirituality. Some people come and ask me about how, on which criteria should they pick the partner in their life. Well, first of all, you can't really pick. It will be just manifested. It's the force of your own, or the power of your own manifestation, and that attraction power that will bring people into the scope of your sort of existence or into your proximity. But with a closer look, you will have to look at kindness and humility as the signs of intelligence beyond the bookish knowledge, intelligence beyond degrees and, scholarships and stuff like that. Because intelligence is this, again, it's the alignment. It's not just some part of intelligence or some kind of a knowing of one aspect of life or the other. It is the alignment with the creative being, which is also intelligence or knowledge. And so when the person is naturally kind, humble, giving and loving, that is much more important in life than just people who speak about some dry bookish knowledge or boast about their achievements, career achievements, or scholarships and stuff like that. Because when the person is kind, that is a soul achievement. When the person is humble, that's an achievement. When the person is selfless and stays on that higher frequency of love, which is generosity and giving, that's an achievement. So that is a precious partner. So if you look for a true connection, look at these qualities, but also be able to give them yourself. Because if you are able to be authentic self, you are able to appreciate that authentic self in the other and attract to that, appreciate it, and go on with that. And that's the primary message. Thank you very much. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.